in the fields, rotting the beams. Years in your pocket, but none in your dreams. Same tired eyes, same tired plans. A fire in your chest, but no place to land. Steps on a road that never bends. They smile when you lose, they wait for the end. Hope slips away, soft as the rain. The wheel keeps turning, but it don't change a thing. On if you want, but the path just folds. Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Lips full of salt, eyes full of gray. Don't reach too high, they always say. Your hands are young, your thoughts are wild. But time here runs like a fatherless child. The roots are thick, the roots are proud. They drink the sky, they choke the ground. You scream in waves, you break in vain. Still they whisper, keep things the same. Run if you want, but the path just folds. Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Born to move, built to stand. Freedom forged by working hands. Raise the flag, hold the line. We were made for this time. Got a strong spirit wide. We don't run, we don't hide. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand. Voices loud, hearts alive. Every stripe, every right. From the fields to city steel. We are truth, we are real. Bound by grace, built to last. We don't fear the storm we pass. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand.
The Freedom's Legacy Conference to celebrate America's 250th anniversary and renew the American spirit. It started right in Machias, where patriots banded together against a British Navy which was ordered to take their timber. Because of the local staunch resistance, the British began to refer to this area as the Hornet's Nest. You're invited to relive those moments with speakers like Bobby Charles, Robert Cross, and more. The Freedom's Legacy Conference, celebrating 250 years of American pride, kicks off January 31st of 2026. Doors open at 8 a.m., lunch is provided, but you have to bring your blazing American spirit. From darkness to light, from bondage to the greatest nation on earth. Join us to celebrate just how amazing it is to be an American.
Space, the final frontier. These are the stories of the USS Dorego and its continuing mission to boldly go where no Republican has gone before. Bring Milja and Shenbel back to Federation space alive. Godspeed, Captain Charles. Red alert! Take us out of warp and bring forward shields to max.
We're approaching the Slaver Collective. The Romulan Democratos was detected here 2 hours ago.
Captain, I'm detecting subspace distortions that could indicate a cloaked Romulan warbird is in the area.
That's the smallest warbird I've ever seen.
The Democratos is charging her forward disruptor banks.
Let's give them the full Sunday breakfast. Don't let them fire first!
Captain's log stardate 46155. The USS Dorego has captured Milja and Shenbel. They're accused of impersonating high-ranking Starfleet officers and then abusing that stolen authority to flood our colony worlds with Borg soldiers. They will stand trial in Federation court.
It doesn't have to be like this, Sparky! You didn't have to betray the people!
I am the people!
Did you bring the pizza? Get her out of here, she'll see her day in court. have traveled far.
Maybe too far.
I sense a great anger within you, as I have sensed in many of your kind. Why have you come here? What is it that you seek?
Everything I knew and loved is dead. I don't know how to live without them. All that's keeping me alive is the rage and unyielding fire
No! Oh. Please, I was just following orders.
that only knows pain.
I cannot teach you how to die.
Then please teach me how to live.
You must let go of your anger. This is the favored weapon of the Dem side.
The attempt on my credibility has left me horribly scarred.
Let the symbols of your fear fall away at last. One is not enough. The Empire's hold on the North is too strong.
The Empire will not tolerate the extremists! They must be crushed!
One is the beginning, and thousands more will follow the same feeling that brought him to us.
Do you not see it now, Darth Cleopo? The truth! The Force has chosen. The Force has chosen. The Force has chosen. The Force has chosen the light.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord, saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, Here am I. Send me.
Now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and divided the light from the darkness.
Believe in Maine. Your love is all we need. All we need to break through to our destiny. Our destiny.
Yes, we made it through another week, another day, in fact, since the last episode. What a trip, right? What a trip. Having Ron Russell here. Calm down, it's a live stream. Calm down, it's enough. All right, give it a rest. Anyway, it was nice having Ron Russell here last night, as well as the Unquirer. Now, I'm constantly getting his name mixed up with the Uniquer, which is not at all the same person. Either regardless of that, we do have a message from John Wayne here at the top of the show. This may make some of our moderate listeners a little uncomfortable, so if there are young children in the room, please make sure they're paying attention to this based message. This is the Duke himself talking about something very, I would say, prescient to the moment that we're in right now.
I think opening doors and tipping your hat to ladies is probably a thing of the past. We're being represented by men who are kowtowing to minorities where they can get votes. And I think it's bad for our country. There shouldn't be so much whining and bellyaching. True, I think they do have a right to more rights, but it isn't a thing where the rest of the country should feel terribly guilty about anything because they have had a better life here and their fathers and mothers than they would have had any place else.
Yeah, Somalis.
And I want to see them have everything. I don't squawk and cry baby and say, geez, I had to go without meals when I was 16 and 17 years old. It's a terrible thing. I don't think that you should look back and whine and bellyache or try to hold somebody else guilty for everything you did.
Exactly. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, but that's the message we really need to understand, is that the people who built this country are you and me and the folks that have been here since the beginning, not the people that arrived last week and were being told to our faces we're racist if we don't accept them as being just as belonging here as we are. Not only that, but the majority of Somalis, we find out, are on welfare. So they came here, cashed in, and we're paying for it. That's not how things should work. If someone immigrates to this country, they should be improving our nation. But you won't hear that argument coming from the left. In fact, you'll hear a very different argument, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So if you're interested in understanding why these people hate us so much, hang around. We're going to go through some evidence of that hatred, though, just to really establish the scale of the problem we're facing here. So meet Eric Martindale right down here in Florida. And this is a registered nurse. This gentleman, and I use that term very loosely, this gentleman says he won't give anesthesia to Republicans who are undergoing surgery and believe that's his right and that it is ethical to resist that. You know, the typical mask wearer you see. And so you have this type of attitude now where they'll just let you die. They'll let you suffer. They'll inconvenience the hospital that has hired them to be a convenience in order to facilitate a political agenda. Now, you'd think that would be like, oh no, the most evil thing. No. We're going to go a bit further down the rabbit hole, you see, because these people are quite unhinged. Now, this lady is Peggy Flanagan, and she is very upset about the Laken-Riley Act. Now, you remember Miss Laken-Riley was likewise a nurse who met her demise at by the hands, rather, of an illegal migrant gentleman, use that term very loosely as well, who decided to take her life on a whim. Not even under any prejudice, just decided to end her life on a whim. Not only that this fellow was also removed from the country previously upon other violent crimes, but due to the catch and release policy, the fellow just walked right back over the border. So let's hear what Miss Flanagan is so flared up about.
Way back at the beginning of this second Trump administration, the very first vote that was taken under this Trump administration was for the Laken-Riley Act, which strips immigrants of due process. There were a handful of Democrats who voted in favor of that bill. My opponent, Angie Craig, was one of them. She also voted for a resolution this summer that praised ICE. Shame. And so
Shame.
We get to tell the truth in this race. We get to tell the truth.
Okay.
And the truth is that Minnesotans deserve better. Our immigrant neighbors deserve better. So we're going to keep showing up for each other. We're not going to throw people under the bus if it's politically expedient, because that is how authoritarianism reigns.
Well, see, this is the problem with Miss Flanagan's claim, is that she is an objection of the Laken-Riley Act, which again protects our innocent Americans from this random crime practiced upon them, that when a violent criminal is found, they are ousted. There's no argument over that. They are gone. When you are an illegal migrant and you are also performing federal level crimes, murder perhaps, you go away. And Miss Flanagan is very upset about that. Our courts should be clogged with illegal migrants who committed horrible crimes. That's apparently what we should be wasting our judicial time on. But thanks to Cam Higby, or perhaps a tipster named Bit Chuni De Soap. I'm sorry, screen names kind of fudge me up sometimes. I am hoping that does not say something else. But anyway, there is now screen capture of the signal chats where the insurrectionists were planning to obstruct the ICE agents. Now, of course, they're freaking out here in order to keep control of their information, in order to make sure that there isn't a leak, and of course there is, but they're planning on running away from Minnesota to escape charges, as though federal charges end at the border. They believe that this is going to be some type of state-level indictment against them, instead of the federal crime that they've committed, meaning there's no place for them to go. Even Canada is an extradition country, Mexico as well, so good luck. So I suppose they could try Somalia. Somalia is not an extradition country, and I'm sure they'll be beloved over there. Have a great time in Somalia, as one does, you know. So here we have it, though. They're freaking out. Now, we have more freakouts right here in Maine, thanks to the Enquirer aggregating this information for us. Leftists in Portland, Maine go berserk on off-duty ICE agent. They are being doxxed, stalked, and it is organized and facilitated by people like Shenna Bellows and Graham Plattner. We'll get into him in a little bit. They use tracking systems and identifying license plates in hotels through a network of far-left activists. Now, when he says network, he means that. Every public institution in this state has been completely ideologically captured by hardline leftists, militant leftists that are prepared to march to the gates of hell in order to fight you tooth and bone. It doesn't matter what the cause is. They must be in opposition to you. It doesn't matter how they must pretzel their morality. They are in opposition to you and me and the people that we love and care about. They want to see those people not so active, let's put it that way. And so as a result, they've formed these networks, which are taking place in, X chats, Facebook groups, all this different Signal chat. Signal is typically encrypted. That's why they use it. It's believed that it's encrypted anyway, but we all know it's the feds collecting information on these freaks. But the situation is that they're networking with each other in order to form a very vast network of people who are able to respond, at least maybe not immediately, but in time, to what they perceive to be an active ICE operation and create problems for those agents carrying out lawful orders. Now, as you and I both know, ICE is mainly focused, it's not a pun, but mainly focused on court-ordered deportation orders. So judges say this person has to leave. This isn't ICE running around like looking for people who have a funny accent and then tossing them in a van, despite what our leftist leaders would have you believe. Old Jan, we'll never surrender. What a goofball last night, huh? What a goofball. We find ourselves a bit neck deep in this mess simply because of what we're about to see here. The brazen attitude here, it pisses us off on the right, but on the left, it gives them something to do with their Saturday afternoons, their Saturday evenings. So it says here, the agents of lawful orders, the agents have lawful orders to carry out immigration deportations for 1,400 criminals. So far. 1,400 criminals. There could be more as we go along here. These Chinese grows are a little shady. So, local and state police are unlikely going to be around to protect them. Now, again, because of the sanctuary status, the police are sort of threatened with having all sorts of reprisals put against them if they go and assist ICE in deportation operations. My apologies. And there is an asterisk here, and it says, we're hearing rumors of teachers planning student walkouts and using the kids as political pawns to protest against this. Students that do not participate will be ostracized. They don't explicitly say this, but they will be. And we've seen this. There's been a recording. I don't have it at the moment. I didn't think to bring it up before the show started. But there's a teacher who is talking down to her student and insisting that just because he's alive doesn't mean he's intelligent, comparing him to an amoeba because he does not believe the same psychobabble that she does about this conflict in Minnesota. And that's just one instance. And I assure you, with our teachers, like that lady up in Waterville that were threatening the president just a few months ago, I assure you the teachers of Maine that are inside of this ideologically captured institution we call public schooling, they're definitely saying the craziest things to their students. And wouldn't you know, old Jan last night promised to make sure they were going to ban phones in schools because all of a sudden, these little rectangles that empower us so much to watch cat videos, right? These little rectangles of doom now must be banned from the classroom. They weren't a problem before. They weren't a problem post-COVID. They weren't a problem before COVID. These old smartphones have been around for quite a while now, especially in the form that they're in with the big old touchscreen. Not like it was for you and me when we had the QWERTY keyboard flipping open and shut. The thing is, though, is that all of a sudden it's a problem because the kids are recording the insane stuff that their teachers are doing. That's what's happening. And you've seen this over the years, teachers just coming completely unglued at these kids over political issues that have nothing to do with the class at hand. Unable to put aside their agenda, their deeply held political beliefs for even an hour to educate students on clouds. All right? So let's get into how these guys are running amok down in Portland.
They are from Arkansas, and they are here to wreak terror and cause havoc to the people and the civilians living here. These are ICE agents, and they do not deserve one moment of fucking peace. Fuck you guys. Go to back fuck where you came from and get the fuck out of our city. You guys are not welcome here. You guys are pieces of shit that cause terror, and you're fucking terrorists.
He's going to make himself cry. You hear that? He's going to make himself cry. He's working himself so much, he's going to cry.
You're not American. Get the fuck out of our city, you pieces of shit. You are not welcome here ever again.
You know they're not from around here because they're walking down the middle of the street thinking it's a sidewalk. You know, it's your first time in Maine, right? You don't know where the road and the sidewalk are. Most of us don't either. We just kind of guess, but they're walking right down the middle of the street. But you're going to see more of this. Obviously, you probably already have. You're going to see more of this of these guys going around trying to bother random people that they suspect to be ICE. Mostly white guys that are of middle-aged, military build. So if you happen to be a gym bro and you've got a little bit of gray in your beard, some fella's going to walk up to you and start a mess with you. I don't genuinely encourage any type of pushback on this because obviously the courts are going to be against us. But when you come across this stuff and these guys are agitating you, it is best to get out of that situation. You don't look weak for not being labeled, not being hit with an assault charge, because that guy's doing everything he can to get a reaction out of those agents. And that reaction was supposed to go viral everywhere. That's why that guy was working himself up to crying. Okay. Because this guy was like, I've got to get so hyper emotional about this. So when it finally goes viral, any minute now, these guys are going to turn around and punch me in my face. And they didn't, because again, they have been trained to deal with psycholibs, whatever you want to call them. But I like psycholibs. It sounds more dramatic. But again, this is in Maine. What shocks me is that I grew up believing this place was Mayberry. Good old Sheriff Andy out there giving us the good news. We hand count the ballots around here. We show up to potluck, that sort of thing. But apparently, there is a seething, inflamed underbelly to this state that just hates tradition, hates normality, and absolutely abhors the idea of a legacy heritage American. A family or a bloodline or a name that has been here since the beginning, since the colony days. They absolutely hate those kinds of people. You'll hear these chants of no one is illegal on stolen land, yet they have no idea what they're talking about. Dinesh D'Souza did a movie about this where he was explaining who do we return the land to if we are to do this. The Sioux destroyed the Navajo, and the Navajo were living in fear of the Apache, and they were so vicious, we named a killer helicopter after them. So who do we give the land back to? The Passamaquoddy, the Penobscot, even the Micmacs up north have a long history of conflict with each other. So who do we give that land back to? See, this is the problem, is that they refuse to acknowledge what the right of conquest is. Almost every map we have on this old Earth of ours has lines drawn. Those lines are barriers between different countries. Most of the time, here in the States, we have our fun little squares, but most of the time, these lines are meant to draw barriers between one country and another. Why do those barriers tend to be bumpy instead of our cool little squares that we have out in the Midwest? Well, because men died by the thousands to take that bump, to own that bump on behalf of a king, a lord, God. That's why those lines are there. It's very hard to explain to the liberal mind what that means, because they equate that to be wrong because, of course, only European people ever did that. I apologize for the stutter there. I don't usually stutter. It's just one of those days, I guess. Either way, it's only European people that do this, of course. It wasn't the Mongols that killed 10% of the population of the planet, okay? People don't like to talk about that. People don't like to talk about how Genghis Khan is related to 15% of this planet because of all the raping. Yeah. They don't like to talk about that part. It's only the Western European people that are wrong. In fact, you can't even convince these psycho-libs, right? You can't even convince these people that the word slave originates with the Slavs, the Eastern European people, the Russian people, because they were so captured, so enslaved, so oppressed that the word slave was originating out of their identity. Them, the Eastern Europeans, were slaves. That's where the origination of the name comes from. The word slave comes from, is Slav. Okay? We can't even convince them of that. All right, now who was enslaving these people? Well, wouldn't you know it was the Ottoman Empire, the African empires. The Songhai Empire itself from West Africa was quite a collector of the Eastern European people and the Western European people. But we're not allowed to talk about that kind of stuff. That's the history that's not important. The only history is the stuff that gets made in the movies. That's what matters, right? And that's what happens with these psycho-libs, is they get it in their head that they're in a movie, that they're a main character, right? Not the M-A-I-N-E character, but the main character is in a Marvel movie. And time again, they think they're superheroes and the plot will get them through as the good guy. It's why they continue to go crazier and crazier, is because they think the credits are supposed to roll. At any minute now, the ICE agents are just going to throw down their guns and take off their masks and start, lathering up their nipples with glitter and join them in the pride parade because they just shouted them down. They shouted them into obedience suddenly. And that's why they behave like this. Everything is designed in their mind to contribute to this movie they're in, this sitcom that they're in. We'll go on now because we're on to Plattner. We talked about him a little bit, and he was a pretty sketchy fella, all right? So we'll have him over here. We have Mr. Plattner making a very bizarre declaration, let's put it that way. So let's hear it from him.
Comrades and compatriots,
Oh boy, we're starting off with the old comrades. Here we go. I wonder if Putin likes this, like some tubby oyster fisherman, whatever you want to call him, oyster farmer, I don't know what you call him. But some chubby clam diggers out here doing the old comrades, join me. I wonder if Putin appreciates that.
This is the administration using the age-old tactic of targeting the marginalized and the exploited to scapegoat them in order to increase their capacity to use force and violence.
This took place in a former church, by the way. The town took over this place, left all the churchy stuff, but then declared it to be a secular space, because psycho-libs.
The federal government has invaded our state to terrorize our communities, abduct our neighbors, and sow fear.
So much fear, by the way. We'll get into that. There's so much fear in Lewiston. So much fear. We have a front row seat to all the fear, by the way.
All in the service of consolidating power. And they are doing it in order to consolidate power, because this is about power.
The guy who constantly talks about consolidating power is now mad somebody else is consolidating power.
And it is frustrating to watch some who are supposedly in power in our state to not use it effectively in resistance.
What would be effective, sir? War? Is that what you're proposing? We'll have to wait and find out.
Some are. Our Secretary of State, as she mentioned, has done a great thing, refusing to hand out license plates that are going to be unmarked for ICE officers.
They're very happy about this because it allows them to go around and slash the tires easier. Because they're the good guys, you know. They're the law-abiding good guys going out and slashing tires like they did with the Teslas. You remember that? The good guys.
And yet we watch leaders and structures of power fail to comprehend the moment in history we are actually in.
It's not the communist rebellion, my friend. We're not the Bolsheviks. Maybe you ought to calm down a little.
Community rapid response teams, volunteer reporting networks, mutual aid networks, organizers, and activists who are rising to their moment in history.
The moment in history that nobody but Redditors will remember. And the way it's going, the EU is going to end up killing Reddit. So doesn't look like that's going to be remembered there, Plattner. Your old stomping grounds on Reddit might be the last archive of this shenanigans, and don't think it's going to be around too much longer.
To the people of Minneapolis, who are showing us all what true power looks like and how to build it.
By standing in front of ICE vehicles and screaming like idiots and slashing tires and disrupting hotel properties without any knowledge of who's inside, just taking random guesses that this might be the one with ICE agents in it. Kind of like that time they bursted into one and broke the glass. Yeah, and caused an ICE agent to injure his hand there. He was injured, bleeding all over the place. And there was that time they bit the finger off an ICE agent. Apparently, Plattner's all about that finger biting stuff, you know. Plattner the biter. Who would have guessed?
No one is coming to save us.
Because you're idiots. You're just children having a terrible tantrum. Because you're adult-sized, you're very difficult to deal with. I mean, that no one's coming to save you because you're idiots. You're quite literally breaking the law. If you want somebody to come to save you, it'll probably be CCP China. And I'll remind you, Mr. Plattner, they would be forcing your Islamic neighbors to be eating pork, okay? Now, I'm no fan of Islam, but I find that just to be stupid. Okay, and that's what China does. At gunpoint, they force the Uyghurs to eat pork and drink beer, which are violations of the Quran. Okay, you should read the Quran. It's pretty crazy. The first part starts off kind of nice, you know, fluffy, like, oh, yes, we're all friends. Everybody's brother. Be nice to everybody. Be peaceful. The second half, though, wow. Edgelord, full edgelord. Man, like the Final Fantasy fan fiction writers have nothing on Muhammad.
But in saving ourselves, we are going to learn how capable we truly are.
Not very, apparently. Not very capable. As it would appear that you guys just simply are, you know, emboldened until the police start arresting you and then you scatter like cockroaches when the lights go on. So not that capable, apparently, Mr. Plattner.
Find those organizations already in the fight. Join a rapid response team. Join a mutual aid network. Sign up for trainings.
Now, what we're finding out is that in order to be part of those, you have to be verified by elected politicians, okay? That you are part of the fight. You can't just be a random Democrat walking in here or, an infiltrator, God forbid, okay? But what we're finding out is that you need to have connections to an actual elected Democrat before you're allowed to participate in this stuff. So this goes right into the people that your taxes are keeping comfortable.
Because what we are building isn't just about resisting ICE.
It's a Bolshevik revolution, the Red Terror in Maine, right, friend? We're going to take every farmer, every doctor, every teacher, and we're going to teach them a lesson, right, buddy? Just like the color revolution in China. Are you going to go as far as Cambodia? Are you, Graham? You thinking you're going to bring Cambodia to Maine? Is that what you're thinking, bud? You look like the type to go smashing a baby against a tree. You look like the type.
It is about building the power to, in the words of Tom Paine, make the world over again. Are we?
That's a revolutionary statement right there. I hope the FBI is narrowing in on this fella. I hope they find out just which countries are contributing to his insanity. I have a feeling Russia is paying him. He talks an awful lot like a KGB asset, He talks an awful lot like a KGB asset. This is almost word for word, by the way, what the communist revolutionaries of the 60s and 70s were screaming in the microphones to throngs of hippies that went on to become our senators and representatives.
Are we going to fight? Are we going to resist? That is why we are going to win. Solidarity, solidarity forever.
Whoa, careful there. I've heard that putting your hand over your head means things. We didn't see if it was an open hand or a fist or not. But then again, as a white guy, you're not allowed to put your fist over your head because that's what those black guys did at the Olympics that one time. And that means nobody else can do it. Don't you love the rules of the left? They just flip-flop, flex, and bend whenever they need to browbeat anybody that disagrees with their current dogma, whatever it may be, whatever's trending on Tumblr, I guess. I don't know if that's even still a place anymore. But if you're wondering where all this vitriol and hatred and all of this, bloodthirst is coming from, why these people are just so ready to murder, well, let's take a look at some colorful diagnosis, okay? This comes from TikTok Homath. I'm not sure this is the origin of it, but this is at Homath over on TikTok that is helping us understand what's gone on with our leftist friends and why they've turned into psychos. What a surprise. The stupid ones think everything is free because they have no idea how anything works. So we just give away free healthcare, right? All those doctors and nurses and all that medical innovation, that just happens because we're nice people. There's no incentive there other than just being the good guys, right? Because it's a movie. What a surprise, right? What do we see over there in Minnesota? Childish, egotistical behavior fueled by SSRIs that cause psychosis and paranoia. It's almost like it was engineered that way, huh? Old baby. Legend. What a surprise. And what he means is this, like over in Somalia, we've heard about how war torn the country is, how difficult it is to live, Al Shabaab going around causing terrible problems. We hear around the world where a lot of these invaders have come from are either war torn or they're countries that simply can't hold on to a leader long enough to assert any type of normalcy over the country to begin with. And so what ends up happening are people adapting to this in a way that causes a desire to resource muster. Our ancestors were like this, and this is what led to a great deal of the European wars. But this sort of resource mustering causes these folks from the third world to prioritize a sort of brutal collection of power, of material, of monetary gain. They need to make sure that they have the shelter, that sort of thing done. And it doesn't matter if these houses are $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses. They will do what they need to do to amass the resources because this is how they exist at home. In order to have what they have to patrol it, control it, and make sure that there is no other opinion about it. This is why the Somalis are very sensitive about having anybody understanding what's been going on with their fraud, because this is part of their resource muster. They patrol this the same way that they patrol a water source, the same way that they patrol back in their home a place where there's food that's actually growing for some reason. They have some type of stable farming going on there that isn't being blown up. You have this situation where people are constantly in this frenzy to collect resources. And that's what he's referring to here, is that these people, maybe as well-meaning as they are, but when they come from the third world, the culture there is survival, not cohesion. We like to imagine that survival comes through cohesion, but it does not. No time in human history has cohesion ever been the case. There has been one dominant force over the top of a group of people that has threatened to kill the other ones if they don't fall in line. That has been how it's always worked until our kings and queens and things like that showed up and started asserting a political power over things and a structure in order to keep the peasant class, who were formerly threatened with death, under control. Then America came along and blew all that apart. And now we have a sense of self-determination. And that evolved, though, from those ye olde times where we were being threatened by the big boss, by the chief, whatever you want to call him. That guy would kill whoever got out of line. Now, that's how it goes in the third world. We like to imagine it. Oh, yes, they have smartphones and they wear T-shirts, so they're just like us. It's not the case. It's really not the case. And it's not their fault. They didn't wake up one day and be like, you know what? I'm going to be a third worlder. They didn't do that. But we have to acknowledge that this is where they came from. And so this is how they're going to behave. All right? People call that profiling. But in reality, you have to look at the environment that you're receiving this person through. And that environment is going to be entirely indicative of how their behavior in your environment is going to go. What a surprise. And that's why they're acting this way. We'll get a little deeper into it with a more refined approach, but pay attention to that they believe that anything outside of their bubble is the turbo devil, double, triple dipped Hitler. All right. That's right. That's how they think. You are just being mean to these people who have less than you. That's the only thought process behind this, not what led to that situation at all. What a surprise. That makes sense now, doesn't it? These people have a fake degree. How many times have you heard about these degrees that just make no sense? These people that are trained for 8, 12 years in things that have absolutely no applicable use in the private market. However, in the public market, oh, yes, well, we need all these experts in these very niche things, and that's what ends up happening. You can look this up. The majority of millennials, white collar millennials, are employed, that are employed in Maine, rather, are employed at nonprofits, just so you know. Okay? It makes sense now, doesn't it? They're not out chopping down trees. They're not out here sweating for a living. They're running a keyboard and trying to figure out how to bilk money out of the government. Right. Right. Yeah. And that's the reality that you're facing is you're dealing with people who are entirely aware of what they're doing is wrong, but they're doing it mainly because it thrills them to do so. It excites them to have this done. And they're used to this, by the way. We are 3 generations into a princess mentality where we tell every little girl, every teenage girl that she's the best and she's a princess and she deserves the best and whatnot. And while, yes, every father who does this is a very well-meaning man, the problem is that there is no correction along that line. Accountability doesn't come through. And more often than not, women end up in these Zoom call hellscapes where they're just on Zoom all day when they're not making videos about sushi at the lunch bar. All right. And this is your leftist, typically your white leftist women who are toting around some useless fake degree. And that's what you end up having is that these people are so used to being catered to, as the video said, that they just make a demand and it's given to them. Then they have a complete psychological meltdown when that need, when that desire, not a need, when that desire is not met, they go out to the street and start creating havoc. And it's just a knee-jerk reaction after knee-jerk reaction because all of this is emotional. It's sort of like how Governor Mills was going out here and crying during the fake crying during the State of the State address over what? What Obama did back when she was AG of this state? Fighting LePage over everything. She didn't seem to have time to shed tears for the 67 people that died in Obama's detention centers down in Texas. Didn't feel too bad about that. Didn't feel too bad about the 3 million people that Obama deported during his time. Didn't feel bad about that at all. All of a sudden, it's an attack on our liberty. It's an attack on who we are. It's horrible. It can't be tolerated. Now, why would that be? Well, because old Jan moved 67,000 new Mainers into here. Go ahead, look it up. 67,000. No wonder she doesn't want to see him go. That's a huge voting block that she's losing. Now, let's get into a more, I wouldn't say scientific, but a discussion about this that's a bit more analytical. Let's put it that way. I'm sorry. I was sitting here listening to all of this and you guys weren't. I apologize. I clicked the wrong button. So anyway, let's listen to this video.
Would you attack the police until they shoot you in the face to protect scammers from Somalia? Well, she would, allegedly. But why? Why would anyone do that? And where do people like this come from? This story was all over the news this week. Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent for interfering with their duties, allegedly.
So this video is a little old, all right? Just so you know, okay? But it's very valuable.
People who do crazy things like this, allegedly, only exist because when people are too comfortable for too long, they get all fat and retarded. Human beings work really hard to create nice things, and then the stupid ones start thinking the nice things are free because they've never done any work. This is the cycle of collapse. And if you don't do real work, you never grow up. And no one's doing real work these days.
So again, like this is why they think they can just, have free healthcare, and the doctors and the nurses and all of our medical innovations are just going to come out of nowhere.
And so more and more people are remaining in these childish, egotistical levels of development. This woman was basically an overgrown baby, and she didn't know what she was doing, allegedly. There are two things going on here. Number one is that a lot of liberals are just not capable of empathy. They think they are, but they're actually just hallucinating that the entire world either shares their values or is the devil. So this kind of liberal wants love and free healthcare for all, so the liberal imagines through psychological projection that everyone who comes here from the third world also wants love and free healthcare for all.
But as we know, such is not the case. As I was explaining when I thought the video was up, what we end up with is that people in the third world come from a scarcity society. We have less scarcity here, right? We're not post-scarcity. That's Star Trek. That's what Star Trek is, with the replicator and dark matter running everything, whatever. That is a post-scarcity society. We have scarcity here, but it is far, far, far lower than it is in most other places, even Europe, okay? Now, when you come from the third world, you come from an environment where you have to resource muster, where you have to hold on to what you have because there are people who will come and take it. Look at South Africa. I wouldn't say that South Africa is necessarily a third world country, but it is trying its damnedest to become one.
Whereas in reality, a lot of people from the third world are still at an opportunistic level of development, which means whatever I can get away with. You probably heard about the Somalian daycare scams that cost Minnesota billions of dollars. That's opportunistic, or level 3. They want control, they want power, they want to gain. You're giving them billions of dollars for nothing, and the Democrats allow it because they want the Somalian vote. Conservatives tend to understand this better than liberals. They actually have empathy. So here's the conservative thinking: my family and my country should come first.
Which is not an outlandish idea. If you remember, our Democrat friends that are screaming their heads off now, back in the 90s, were all on board with moving every last illegal out of the country. Because if you remember, Reagan was the one that signed amnesty, which meant the Democrats had to be in opposition to all of these new people coming into the country. It's kind of weird how these guys just don't have a spine.
And then when he thinks about what the third world thinks, that's thinking about thinking, he understands that a lot of them are just not like us at all and also not very friendly.
And again, they come from a society where they have to take. This is why they function the way that they do, why they do seek out the fraud, why they do seek out to have these lavish homes, these fancy cars, and think nothing of just having millions of dollars of fraud poured down upon them, okay? It's because where they come from, they have to resource muster. And when you resource muster, you become quite ruthless in this. That's why they had no problem sticking their hand out for that Lewiston shooting money, even though they weren't involved with it whatsoever.
But the liberal, who is just in love with his own wonderfulness, he assumes that everybody in the world wants the same things he wants. And that's not empathy, that's a projection.
Correct. And this is a time and time what we see with them is that they go crazy when they are confronted with the reality that their little pocket of ideology is not anywhere else in the world. It is wholly and entirely private to their little hashtags and their funny little emojis.
That's what happens when your empathy is developed to the level of a 3-year-old because you've never had to do anything difficult in your pathetic life. At this low level of empathy, you're going to assume that everybody has the same desires as you, or they're just a bad guy like Darth Vader.
And that's why they hate us, because they have the ability, the cognitive ability of a child. They are only able to understand that these are the good guys and over here are the bad guys. And they are bad because they disagree with us. They boil it down to a movie because they believe they are living in a movie. This is the worst effect that the Marvel movies have had on these leftists, is because it's framed in their mind that life is black and white, that you must destroy what is in opposition to you, because if you don't, then it'll turn into a giant red Hulk man and burn through things and beat up a black guy pretending to be Captain America. It's one of those things where you're going to be neck deep in these crazies because they have framed everything like Optimus Prime versus Megatron. They're not in reality with you and I, where people are allowed to disagree and not become violent over it.
And now you understand liberals and why they hate you for caring about your country. They think that you are being mean to the innocent babies who just want free health care. That type of liberal is either a retarded psychopath or a retarded psychopath with a fake degree in gay crying or victim studies.
Now, again, this comes from years and years and years of stoking up these fake degrees to get these people hired into government positions, being experts in things that flatly don't exist. Okay? Now, I'll remind you, I mentioned it a little earlier, but I'll bring it back again. Feel free to Google this. The majority of millennials that are employed in Maine are employed at nonprofits, or are recipients, their workplace services nonprofits. Okay? Just so we're all on the same page on this one. This is how deep all this stuff goes. So rather than going out and dealing with the sweat on their lip, they're sitting around a keyboard trying to pull money out of the government.
This video is not going to cover the regular psychopaths, the people who call themselves classical liberals who actually just don't know what century it is, or the naive white boomers who think that being nice makes people be nice back. The other kind of retarded psychopaths, which is to say not the naive ones, are bratty, entitled women and their simps, which is how this relates to our dating breakdown.
So you will meet in life a group of men who are willing to completely abscond with their values, their identity, the legacy that bore them, in order to make a woman happy in their lives. You've met so many men that sacrifice every part of their identity in order to make either the wife or the girlfriend happy. Of course, that backfires because women just simply don't want that. A lot of women that you'll meet in life, and again, feel how you like about this, but a lot of women you'll meet in life want a challenge. They want a man that they're disagreeable with. Not so much they hate this guy, but they want a man that they feel like they have to fix, that they have to help. They have to bring him around and uplift him, you know? Not that you want a woman that looks down on you, but you want to keep this woman under the belief that she has to, you know, bring you to the modern time. There's a lot of this talk in the past, like when John Wayne was coming up, of how women clean up a man, you know? And that's typically what they liked about that role. You'll see this in a lot of old television shows, a lot of interviews with mom and pop, a lot of the dynamic between male and female relationships where the man is very rough cut. He's ill, you know, he's mild mannered like Clark Kent, but he's a good man. He goes to work. He does his time. He tithes to the church. He makes sure that he waits before crossing the road. You know, he looks both ways, that kind of guy. And the wife is there to make sure that he looks good doing it, that his hair is combed, that his tie is tight, and that his pants are on the right way. You don't want the front and the back. It's very uncomfortable. But the situation is that that's how those relationships used to work. And of course, the husband made sure that the wife was comfortable at home. If she wanted one of those floor model record players from the day that were pretty much the size of the station wagon that brought them home, they would have them. If they wanted the automatic super deluxe kitchen, they got them. You know, and that's how it was, is that there was this trade-off between man and woman, where the man made sure that the woman was very comfortable in her environment and didn't want for much, you know, who wouldn't want to be like a princess or a queen, of course. But they made the woman very comfortable in the environment in exchange for the woman being the, I wouldn't say humanizing factor, but to be the one that was there to make sure that the man himself was comfortable and taken care of, because as men, we get into a rhythm, and that rhythm tends to lean itself into, yeah, that's clean enough. It tends to lean itself into get the job done before you come back around to how you look doing it. There's the element where the wife would remind the husband that he couldn't get into a fight. Oh, you've got more to worry about, husband. Don't go out there swinging your fists at the bar tonight, that sort of thing. The dynamic was there, and that the wife was always there to remind the husband of his purpose, of his role. It's not that the man would forget this, but as men, we get wrapped up in our purpose, and we tend to forget the finer things that make life good to live. You see? Not that you need a tie or a comb over in order to do that, right? You style your hair however you like. You can wear whatever you like, of course. But that's what this is about, is that the male-female dynamic was much, much more cohesive because we knew what we were supposed to do in those roles. And over the last 30 years, there's been a concerted effort to tell women that, no, you should run everything. The men are stupid and cause wars and do terrible things, because women don't do those things, obviously, right? We certainly don't have a leader of the EU that's going completely nuts with power and threatening World War III, because why not? What does she have to lose? It's not like she's going to find herself on the battlefield.
Women like Renee have been told that they are all tens all the time for so long that they can't even conceptualize being wrong. They just make demands and wait for them. And if they don't get their way, then they try to run over the cops. These are the times we live in. About 48% of white women, usually the fat, ugly, insane ones, are actually using their political power to make sure that anyone in the world can walk into your country and steal from you. And it's all because we let them become a bunch of spoiled brats and naive little children.
And that's the reality of what we're facing, okay? Here in Maine, we have a lot of women who are doing the jobs that men do. There's no one here that's trying to deny that. Maine is one of the places I talk to people around the world. I have worked for companies that are overseas, over in Europe even. I don't like Europe, but I have to work for them sometimes. We're over there in Europe, and then I talk to people that are across the country here, that are, in California and Arizona, up there in Michigan, down across Florida, up into Georgia, North Carolina, all of these places. And Maine is like some mystical, otherworldly planet to them. They have no idea how we live here. It's some otherworldly sort of story time when I explain to them just an average, regular Maine lifestyle. And they just can't fathom how men and women work together around here. This is a very rare place to live, and is being corrupted very fast with these ideologies that women are superior. Now, here in Maine, we're descended from Irish folk, okay? If you want to go back into the ye olde entertainment that I was talking about, you remember there were women running around with rolling pins, and they would bap their husband over the head for his misbehaviors, whatever they were. And she was typically depicted as a woman who was just as strong as the man, or just as fierce as he was, you see? And that comes from Ireland, okay? That's the Irish influence on Maine's culture anyway, is that typically the Irish women were very, very, very forceful and very, very strong-willed and very passionate about holding their husbands and holding their families together, okay? And so much so that a streak of violence, passionate as it was, would come out of them. And so here in Maine, our men, through, learning their lesson a few times, have become obedient to the women. And the problem is that it's not that these women are evil inherently. It's that men are meant to lead. It's not that women are forever locked to following. Look at Mrs. Buttersworth Company. They went out and did wonderful until people decided it was racist to have the creator of the company on the bottle when she put her face on the bottle anyway, but whatever. Mrs. Buttersworth went out there. There are countless companies started by women that became fantastically successful. No one's denying that. But when it comes down to the dynamic between men and women, is that the woman is typically in the advisory role. Now, when we look at the kings and queens, a lot of these romance stories have gone and colored the king as some type of despot, and the woman is just sort of hanging around, either committing some type of terrible crime or just sort of bored sitting on the other throne, right? But the reality is that the queen was typically the highest advisor to the king. Remind you that Charlemagne made his daughters advisors to him in science, education, and, the civil living of people. One of his daughters convinced him that the constellations above us were not a blasphemic part of reality. The pagans, right? The pagans didn't do this to drag us to hell, that this was part of God's tapestry over our heads. That the zodiac did not have any information to give us. They were merely beautiful things that God put in the sky above us. Not gods, not controlling our destiny, but rather evidence of the creativity and will of our Creator to create an expansive blanket of stars over our heads. It's not only beautiful to look at, but also makes shapes to our intelligent mind. Fish don't look up and see, Sagittarius. Deer don't look up. Bear don't look up and see these different shapes in the sky. They're not looking at Capricorn, wondering what their Monday is going to be like. That's not happening in the animal kingdom. We alone are the only creatures on this planet that looked up and decided what those look like. And Charlemagne's daughter told him that that's not evil, but rather the pagans had misinterpreted the beauty of God's creation. Now, did that mean that daughter should have gone on to be the new emperor and usurp her father and make him look like a fool and emasculate him and order all women to power? No, not at all. Not at all. And we must recognize that this is a good thing. This is healthy. When it comes to the decisions of life and death and huge amounts of risk, men are typically better suited to take them on because we are, throughout history, the ones held accountable for these things. You can go and look right now at the female pedophiles that go out and harm their students at high schools. These women receive, most often, lesser sentences. They receive less prison time simply because they're women. They've committed the exact same crime as their male counterpart, but because they're women, well, we got to be gentler, we got to be nicer, that sort of thing. And this is inculcated, this is cocooned, this has fertilized this very vile attitude about female supremacy, as though they're behaving that they live in a male supremacist society, even though that is nature itself, how this works. And that's just how it goes. We'll move on now to this video here where we have a much more, I wouldn't say intelligent look at it, but there's a much more philosophical and maybe psychological element to this, okay? This is Melanie Phillips. This is Melanie Phillips, and she's explaining how the liberal mind has evolved now, the Western liberal mind.
Liberal mind conceives of itself as being good because it's liberal. The Western liberal tells him or herself, I'm a good person because I'm liberal. I'm liberal because I'm a good person, which means that I believe in things like the brotherhood of man, conscience and compassion, looking after the wretched of the world, the poor and the wretched of the world, standing up against abuses of power. These are all good things.
As though conservatives don't also do this?
And that's why I'm a liberal. And I'm a liberal because of all these good things. So one of the expressions of my goodness and my liberalism is that I support the Palestinian Arabs, who I think are an oppressed people, and they are oppressed by the Israelis, who have taken their land away from them, and they are oppressing them. Now, every part of that, in my view, is a lie. But put that to one side. This is what the liberal progressive thinks.
Yes.
And the liberal progressive thinks that supporting the Palestinians is therefore something that makes the liberal progressive a good person.
And this is how they weigh everything. You have to understand. They weigh everything by who looks the more oppressed in this, not the reality of the conflict. It's just these people appear to be struggling more than these people, so they are clearly the people that must be supported.
October 7 happened. And suddenly you have a situation in which the people that the liberal progressive has supported as being oppressed, and everything they do is a legitimate defense or resistance against oppression, suddenly we can see that those people have turned into the most bloodthirsty savages that could ever be imagined, in which the people that they have supported as being oppressed and good people because they're victims are these savages. And the people they have represented as oppressors are the victims. They can't have that. Because if they have that, if they admit that that is the case, then their entire worldview is shattered.
Exactly. And this is why you will never get through to these hardline leftists like Plattner, like Bellows. They will never, ever come around. The boomers before us believe very much that if they make the right case, if they plead the right way, oh, the Democrats, they'll finally come home to roost. They'll finally come back to the barn. No, 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 no. That's not going to happen. These people are flatly incapable of recognizing what's wrong in the world, because if they do, they understand that they're the source of it. They understand that they're enabling horrible things to happen simply because they have visually identified some group as being lesser or have been told this and decided that they must support these people who appear or they have been told are lesser than those they are in conflict with. This is why over and over and over again, you see these people that claim that they're not racist, even though they go out and they say black people aren't smart enough to go get an ID. By the way, that's the whole progressive argument. When you finally listen to how they're explaining why it's racist to expect voter ID to be a thing, they have to admit that they don't believe black people can go get an ID. Now, I recommend that you go out and you talk to any black person you know. They are absolutely going to tell you, even if they're not from Maine, they're going to tell you that they have to have an ID to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to buy a cigarette lighter, to buy anything that involves any type of adult consumption. They need an ID to get into an R-rated movie. In some places, you need an ID in order to get on a bus. This sort of thing is a entire flipping of their mentality, because at one minute they'll tell you it is racist to suggest that any black person is at all not up to snuff with the task that has been, laid before them. Ilhan Omar, excuse me, something's going around. But, that is racist to suggest that this person is not up to snuff. However, they're going to tell you straight to their face that they don't believe black people are smart enough to find the DMV. They'll tell you straight to your face that they don't think black people are smart enough to find the DMV. And so that's why she's right about this, is that she absolutely has called this out, that they can't recognize what happened on October 7th as what happened, because if they do, that means that all the things that they have told themselves about the Palestinians are simply not true. Are these people being blasted out of oblivion? Absolutely. Is Israel going in there with an extreme prejudice that I wouldn't recommend even for America? Absolutely. But on those two fronts, we must understand this doesn't involve us. We shouldn't be aiding the Israelis in this on our own anyway. This is a conflict that's between these two groups that odds are has been going on for 2 centuries now, or 2 millennia now. It's 2,000 years that these people have been bickering over this land. It doesn't have anything to do with us. It's not going to stop because we're involved. If anything, we've made it 1,000 times worse because we've got money pouring into both sides. So we need to stop this whole world policing concept. And then on top of it, right on top of this, we need to make sure that our liberal friends understand that they have enabled this chaos because they believe that only the lesser group is right. This is why they support Maduro, even though he's the despot they think Trump is. Right? Even though he's the dystopian leader that they think Trump is, okay? Maduro, they support him because they see him as lesser. So he's obviously the victim, even though Biden put out a hit on him. But hey, whatever,
Because the people, the cause they have supported as representing goodness is shown to be evil. And what does that make them? It makes them evil. So they can't have it. So what do? They go to extraordinary lengths to pretend that black is white, that justice is injustice, that oppression is resistance, and vice versa. So they have to represent the Israelis as being at fault. The Israelis are to blame for what's happened. So there is no better way of blaming people than accusing them of the very thing they are the victim of.
And so that's what happened with the left, is that as we're going and seeing all of this, you saw this with Janet Mills last night during the governor's State of the State address there, where she was simply shoveling all the trouble that the state is in off on the Trump administration, as though she had not been governor for the past 8 years.
Projection.
So you accuse them of genocide. We hear it also regularly. The Israelis are accused of being Nazis. It's the same thing. It's not simply an offensive thing. It's a very deliberate thing, because if the Israelis are Nazis, then we are free. We, the liberal West, are free of any kind of guilt or any kind of association with bad things, because they are to blame. They are the people who are bad. And so we are free to continue with our fantasies of us being good people. And I think that's also what lay behind these amazing scenes that we saw on social media of people with their hands tearing down the posters of the hostages. Now you have to ask yourself, what's going through the mind of someone like that?
See, again, they're not thinking it through. They have been told by their group chats that this is a good thing to do. The simps want to impress the girls, so they'll go out and do this, and the girls are in their group chats working each other up into some apocalyptic prediction, so that way they go out into this with a mentality, boosted by their SSRIs, with a mentality that they need to go out and obliterate opposition to their thought processes that were born inside of this group chat. A lot of these women that are out there, these white liberal women are out there, and what they're doing is that they're under the impression that if they don't go along with this, they'll lose their friends. It's like I told you with the last episode. Please talk to your wife, girlfriend, mother, sister, daughter, niece, aunt. Talk to them. Ask them how they're feeling about ICE. Let them explain their concerns, and then gently guide them back to reality and remind them that the trouble that we're seeing is caused by people desiring to throw themselves in opposition to a lawful federal operation. Lawful federal operation, by the way, that had gone on under Obama, that they did not care about, nor did they know about, because their group chat was not screaming and hollering and trying to internalize and make this drama their own. That's why a lot of them act the way that they do, because they see what happened to Renee Good and what happened to Alex Preddy, and they think that, oh, I'm next. My dear, unless you try to run over an agent, unless you bring a gun to a protest and start getting into fights with ICE agents, odds are you're not going to end up losing your life. Now, that doesn't mean that if you tangle with any law enforcement, you're going to die. But odds are you've made the odds of that happening much higher. Now, why did these people end up in conflict with the law? Because they believed that they were the superheroes, fighting Hydra agents, fighting the real Nazis from the 1930s, brought through a time portal or something, okay? They believe that they are the heroes and that they must sacrifice themselves, because when the credits roll, they'll be brought back to life and Nick Fury will ask them to join the Avengers. They have internalized these Marvel movies to be reality. And this is why they're behaving the way that they are, is because they see Scarlett Johansson driving through legions of Hydra agents and they think, well, I'll do that. It's just so easy. I could just do that and get away. And this is really the eroding factor of having such an immature population, because they see TV and they think, aha, that's reality. You hear all the time, there are studies done all the time about people that they can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. I guarantee you, these people that are running out to throw themselves in front of ICE see themselves as superheroes.
These weren't posters advertising Israel. They weren't advertising the Israeli Defense Forces. They were pictures of babies, of children, of women who had been kidnapped by bloodthirsty monsters, by savage, depraved savages, and were being almost certainly subjected to untold horrors. And yet, they were torn down, and the faces of the people tearing them down were contorted very often with rage and hate. And you have to ask yourself, what's going on in the mind of that person? And it seemed to me that they had to literally, with their fingernails, tear it out of sight. It was something that could not be tolerated to be in existence at all. The very concept of the Israeli babies and children as victims of the people they had been supporting, because it contradicted the narrative on which they had hung their own moral worth. And it seemed to me also they were tearing the Jews out, trying to tear the Jewish people completely out of their world, out of their sight, out of their world, out of their minds, out of their thoughts, and out of their consciences. That's to me what it represented.
And so what's gone on, though, is that I'm not so sure that she's right about them destroying them because they're Jewish. I do believe that they're destroying them because they are against the narrative that these people have become so marinated in. You have to understand that these posters showing children being victims doesn't compute with what they know to be reality. In their reality, the Jewish children pop out holding guns, ready to shoot down Palestinian children. Little babies with their umbilical cords are fighting in the streets of Palestine and Israel. You know, the West Bank is just littered with infant combatants. And that's in their mind what they think is that the Israeli children out of the womb, before even, are built to oppress and destroy. You've seen these posters go around, these articles that having white children is oppressing people somewhere else in the world, just little white children. Well, this is how the liberal mind operates, especially when they think about what's going on between Israel and Palestine. So they cannot allow these children to be victims of what's going on with Hamas and those other creatures, if you will, over there. They can't allow that to happen. They can't allow that to be a reality in their mind. So you have to keep deferring this. Oh no, Israel brought it on themselves. They invited this. This is for all the years of the open prison, so on and so forth. They have to have that narrative in their mind. So that's why they destroy these posters, because the posters deliberately challenge the narrative that they are marinated in. It challenges their friend group. And for women, that's a much higher place than most women. That's a much higher threshold where they need to barrier themselves off. They need to make sure that they're not interacting, right, with things that'll bring them grief from their group chat girlies, from their hen party friends, okay? Because a great deal of them are still stuck in hunter-gatherer mentality, that being left out means that you are, you know, losing all access to the fun and hee-haw and the fear of missing out, right? You hear this in advertising, the fear of missing out. It typically affects women more than men. I'm not saying that men are immune to it entirely, but typically men are like, okay, I'll wait to see it on DVD, whereas women are, you know, very committed to getting involved in things right out of the gate. And again, they have a fear of missing out, and the emotional manipulation related with that comes to the head when you risk losing your friends. Now, for men, we're told most of our stories, in fact, are about a man having to leave his group of friends and go out and do things by himself. And in the process, he meets a new allyship. He becomes a new group of people, a new family, if you will, a new found family is earned along the journey. Okay. That's typically our tales. Whereas a lot of stories for women involve a woman being surrounded by her friends, the girl gang, and the girl gang coexisting in all environments together. And they are sort of part of this unit together. You know, there's one or two girls that are very tightly knitted together. Go ahead, look it up through female media. And this is how it works, is that there is this belonging, this need to belong that the left, or the string pullers on the left, have successfully managed to pull into their control. And so through media, through music, through movies, comic books, video games, all of this narrative about how you need to stick with your girlfriends, how having this group of women who help you make your decisions is the appropriate way to go, is all through it. All through it. And you need to remember that that's what causes a great deal of trouble, even in your own family, even in your own relationship with your girlfriend, is that this group chat is just feeding into this rage, this paranoia, all of it, while none of that is happening in reality. Okay? We have John Featherston from the Main Wire now, and he is reporting on all of the chaos and terror happening in Lewiston today. This was just posted a few hours ago, and we'll just take a look at what he's got to say here, because again, God bless John Featherston. He's out here, a man with no fear on the streets of the mean streets of Lewiston that are just completely thrown into Nazi terror right now.
Hey, good afternoon. John with the Main Wire. Just about noon on Wednesday. I've spent the last 3 hours. I've been in Lewiston most of the morning. I'm going to tell you it's a business as usual day. Here I am on Lisbon Street, right in the heart of downtown Lewiston. Businesses are open. I'm seeing all types of different demographics of people. I've seen kids going to school. I've seen businesses being open. I'm right across from a store right now. People are going in and out.
Sounds like an atmosphere of terror. People are just literally hiding under the floorboards right now.
So it's business as usual. I haven't seen any ICE activity here in the city of Lewiston. So I'm a little confused when I hear all of these rumors that people are living in fear and that there's no activity in Lewiston. I'm here to say it's a little bit different. I mean, it's just a normal day here in Lewiston. I am doing some reporting on the Lewiston Shooting Fund and asking some nonprofits. I'll put together a video on that a little bit later, but I'm here to report. It's just a typical Wednesday here in Lewiston. So to fact check it, I did come by the Lewiston Police Department. As you can see, I'm in the parking lot of the Lewiston Police Department right now.
To find out how much terror and unrest is actually unfolding on the streets of war-torn Lewiston.
I did have an officer tell me that calls were down last week, but seems like, calls have returned to normal this week and people are back out and living their lives. Like I said, I've seen a lot of activity in downtown Lewiston today. So I watched the governor's press conference.
And we're hearing that there's a lot of fear.
The mayor's over the town and people are saying that, people are hiding and people are, I'm not saying that they are not, but I'm not seeing it here in Lewiston. It's a typical day in Lewiston. Storefronts are open, businesses are open.
Oh no.
Police are saying that calls have returned back to normal. I haven't seen any ICE activity, and I've spent a lot of time in the city this morning. So we'll just keep fact checking things and check back with the Main Wire for more updates. I'm John Featherston.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, nothing went on. There were no bombings in the background. I didn't hear any random gunfire, which, is pretty good for Lewiston. That might be the effect of ICE having come through. Who knows? But we don't hear the danger. We don't see the danger that the Mills administration, Shanna Bellows, and the Democrats are trying to tell you that it's happening. Of course, Graham Plattner's telling you to declare war on your own government because, what else are you going to do on a Monday, right? But the situation that you find yourself in, though, is that when you go out and try to fact check any of this or witness it yourself or even be part of the fight that's happening on the streets of Lewiston, you find that it's not really happening at all. I would think if there was any trouble that McDonald's drive-through would probably be the first thing to get shut down. People would be talking about that. Dunkin' Donuts drive-through would be shut down. It's pretty dangerous to have people clustered around like that, Some freak could just show up and nail everybody in line there to get their Cappa Mochaccino or whatever it is, right? So you'd think those places would be shut down if there was some violence on the street that the police couldn't contain, but no, that's not the case at all. As John Featherston reported, everything is A-OK. The streets, in fact, are flowing fine with traffic and not death. So it would appear that all of the hyperbolic speeches about this, all of the crazies coming out of the woodwork to scream about the end of time that has fallen upon Maine, well, it's just not the case. As it turns out, ICE came and got what they needed and moved on, and most likely will come back when they have information on the targets they were unable to acquire while they were here. Now, I expect the next place that they show up in is going to end up having this type of temper tantrum all over again. But I invite you to go out and look at the streets yourself. Don't get involved with the ICE agents. Don't even go over to shake their hand and tell them they're doing a good job. You'll know if they're off duty. You'll know if they're hanging around somewhere and they're having coffee or something. You'll have a moment. But please, if you see them doing anything where they've got their masks on and they're moving around with their heads on a swivel, please make sure to stay out of their way. Don't bother saying hi. They're very focused and undoubtedly are moving in a way that they need to have a element of surprise in order to capture the target they're after. So please just move on from when you see them and let people know that, you're happy that ICE is doing what they're doing here in Maine. I am. As I've explained multiple times on this show in the past, Janet has moved in at least 67,000 new Mainers into this state. So what you need to think about that is that's what's on paper. Now, you know, these people have family, you know, they have clans, all sorts of things. We know that the Chinese are bringing in people as part of a trafficking operation as a result of their illegal grows. So I'm betting that there's close to 200,000 people in this state that are not supposed to be here or in any state of the United States. And what we find, right, is when we remove those people, there will be less than 1 million people in Maine. This isn't a case to keep these people. But what I'm trying to tell you is that be prepared, is that if this has the effect that the Trump administration intends it to have, we are going to feel the immediate departure of more than 1,400 people. And that departure is going to cause a lot of dominoes to fall in our economy, in the various different NGOs that depend on these people coming through. And you're going to see the snakes start, you know, bailing away from the fire. You're going to see the rats escaping the sinking ship. And you'll know exactly what you're looking at when you see it. But this is what I'm talking about. When we lose all of these fighting age men that have been brought in here, our average age rate is going to shoot up from 45 to 55. And it's going to be very hard to attract corporations here with the understanding that the average age in Maine is 55 rather. It's very difficult to get corporations to come in here to begin with our average age being 45. So I ask you, please bear in mind as we go forward doing this, that it is not bad that these people are being removed, but we must have a plan going forward with what to do when they're gone. Not when they're dead. Don't interpret it that way. That's not what we want. It's when they're deported, okay? When they're gone from the places they occupy here, people need to occupy those spaces, or we need to have systems in place that are automated to occupy those jobs. Now, granted, I understand not a great deal of them are working, but enough of them are that it's caused wages to stagnate in the Lewiston area for quite some time now. So that's enough people that have allowed employers to say you're only worth this much regardless of where you come from, okay? And that's just the Lewiston area, Lewiston, Auburn, Westbrook area. That's just that, okay? Not places like Portland, not places like Bangor, Waterville, or any other place where these folks are getting concentrated. And their absence will be felt because they are working the slave wage jobs, because that's what the Democrats brought them in to do. They're intended to be a hostage workforce. And when all of us are either gone or, you know, moved on to the next life or what have you, they're intended to be forced into compulsory labor in order to keep their citizenship as flimsy as it is. This is the game. You either go to work or you get deported. And these people will go to work for less and less wages. And this is what the Democrats are intending to create. Now, of course, Trump is destroying that. And without that slave class, you're going to see things change around here very, very quickly. So please bear in mind that right now things are rough to find a job, but soon there might not be businesses to be hiring because their workforce has gone away. We live in interesting times, and I'm not making a case to keep these people. What I'm just trying to do is make you aware that things are going to change hard and they're going to change fast. And we have to be prepared to deal with that. We can do it. Japan's working on solutions right now for how they're cleaning out people and how to automate systems and move around resources to make sure that the brunt of that loss is not felt too harshly and that they can compensate. We can follow in those paths, and we should. Maine's demographics are pretty near 1-to-1 with Japan's. We can make things work. We have the willpower. We have overcome worse in the past. We can do this, and I need you to believe in the state of Maine, because things will get dark before they get light again, as we know around here with our short days in winter. Okay? So bear with me. Make sure that you are prepared mentally and spiritually. Get right with God. Make sure you're saying your prayers and saying your thanks. But also prepare for a very, very difficult Maine for a few years while we iron out the dents the Democrats have put into our beautiful state. Okay? Now, I want to remind you guys that this is a regularly occurring stream. We've seen a lot today. We've felt a lot today. But the reality is that I go live at least once a week on this. I went live yesterday to talk with Ron Russell about the goings-on of the State of the State with Janet Mills. The Enquirer stopped by to have some laughs with us. We had a good time. I had Ron laughing a couple of times there. I do consider that to be a bit of a victory. If you're listening, Mr. Russell, I am proud that I got a laugh out of you there, you know. It's one of those things that I like to do with guests is make sure that they feel comfortable with us and having a good time. We are more rambunctious than your average boomer, certainly, but we come from a much more strained background as far as Maine is concerned. And so our opinions of our leaders are a little low. Okay? As always, guys, I wish you the best of luck. And I need you to remember to keep a cool head. Remember, we win.